If you want your kids to be successful in the real world, you got to teach them about real world consequences. Like, if you don't pay your bills, you're going to end up on the streets. If you don't pay your bills, you're going to end up living with family members who aren't going to treat you like a man. Because a man pays his bills, right? A man supports his family, right? So why would somebody that you're dependent upon treat you like a man? They're not going to. So there needs to be a system for children growing up and learning that teaches them about real world consequences. And I think the best way to do that is by giving kids bills. Giving kids bills. Okay? You have your education bill. You have your clothing bill. You have your food bill. You have your housing bill. That way, your kids learn that you have bills. You have bills to pay, and the way they pay is by learning, by exercising, by working out, by doing these types of things. This puts them in a scenario that mimics the real world, the system, because as it stands, the education system doesn't put kids in these real world situations. There's no real world consequences for not being a hard worker. Like, kids can slack off as much as possible and there aren't any real world repercussions. So it shouldn't be like that, because by the time the kid gets out of school, and they were never taught about these real world consequences, all of a sudden they get thrown in the real world and they have to support themselves and they have to pay their bills, or else then they don't know how to handle it because they've never understood it. They've never lived through it. They've never been in that situation. But like I said, if you raise them up with those real world consequences, make them pay their bills through hard work. Like, they don't have to have money, but they have to pay through hard work. They understand and they appreciate the value of the stuff they have, the food, the housing, their clothes, their education. They understand the value of it and they don't take it for granted. And they appreciate it. They appreciate things more when they have to work hard to get it. If you don't have to work hard, or if there's no real world repercussions for not working hard, then they're not going to appreciate anything, because it just comes to them automatically without them having to do anything. So the best way to teach kids is what the education system should be doing, is mimicking real life. But they're not doing that. They're making everything comfortable and easy. Oh, everybody gets an A, everybody, for participation awards, and just socialize with your friends, and life is easy and life is fun, and, you focus on pronouns, focus on your pronouns, focus on these things that don't really matter in real life. Focus on all these things that don't matter, and that's what's going on. If there were real world repercussions for kids, they would have no time to worry about pronoun. Oh, you're using my wrong pronoun. Oh, there's a million different genders and all these things that don't really matter when it comes down to it. If we're in a situation, a do or die situation, nobody's going to be worried about pronouns. No one's going to be worried about all these different crazy genders, because that's the last thing on your mind. That's going to be the last thing on your mind. The first thing on your mind is going to be trying to survive, trying to struggle, trying to get food, trying to get water. Like, most of the world is just struggling to survive. They don't have time to worry about all this nonsense. But this is what kids are being taught. They're being taught that everything is easy, the system is easy. They're not taught anything about the system. That you have to pay these bills, that you have to work hard your entire life, and everything could be taken away from you like that. You know, it takes a lifetime to build, but you can just lose everything like that. They could take your job. You know, especially these past 2 years, we've learned that they can take everything away from you with the snap of a finger. They could take your business. They could take your livelihood. They could take your house. They could take your property. They could take whatever they want away from you when you're 100% dependent on them. And this proves that they want you dependent on them. Because if they wanted you to be independent, they would teach kids from the very beginning real world repercussions for your actions. Kids would have to pay bills before they ate lunch, before they got to go on the playground, before they got to hang out with friends. You got to pay these bills. And that's what homeschooling should teach. Homeschooling should teach kids the struggle, because life is a struggle, especially when you are independent. So that's what I believe. I believe that that's what I wish. I wish I would have had that since I was young. I wish I would have had to pay bills since I was young. Not necessarily through money, but like I said, through hard work, through learning, through completing homework and stuff like that. And if I didn't, no food, no socializing, no playing, no games. I mean, these days, kids get out in the real world and all they want to do is just play video games. They don't want to have to go to work. It's like a hassle to them. They don't realize what it's like not having anything. And that's such a detriment to these kids, and that's such a detriment to society. It's better when people are independent. It's better when families are strong. Otherwise, that movie Idiocracy becomes a documentary. People just keep getting more and more ignorant, more and more dumb. And society becomes worse. The quality of life goes down. Our rights are taken because we don't understand anything. That's what's going on. We're not taught real world success, real world survival, real world repercussions for our actions. Think about it, 18 years and you don't know the struggle. I mean, I'm sure there's some kids who know the struggle because, I don't know, maybe their parents are just don't work, or their parents are on drugs, or, you know, they're in a bad situation, so they understand like the struggle. But for the most part, everybody has food on their table. You know, so many, you know, especially more in the past. I mean, now there's a lot of homeless people, but, you know, the majority of people have food on the table, have a roof over their heads, have clothes on their back, and they just enjoy life. They don't think about if all this stuff is just taken away from us. Now they're saying there's going to be food shortages. The value of the dollar is going down. Inflation is going up. It's like stuff is being taken away from us, and people don't know. People are not going to know how to handle it. People don't even realize it's going on. They're just acting like everything is good. Like, whatever. I'll worry about it. You know, I'll worry about whatever when it comes. But when it does come, how are these people going to deal? They're just used to having everything. They don't know what struggle is. They don't know what it is without food, without water, without, you know, a place to live or what have you. They're just used to whatever, playing video games, watching movies, hanging out. What are they going to do? It's not good. This is what greed does. It's not good. Like, a good society would teach people about struggle from the beginning. That way everybody can be successful in their own way. Be independent. Independence is not what they want for everybody. They want people dependent. Because when people are dependent, they have control over those people. If you live with somebody and you're just used to them taking care of every need and whim and desire that you have, and you have that your whole life, then that person has leverage over you, because they can say, oh, well, I'm going to kick you out of the house. You've never learned how to survive on your own. I mean, I'm sure that kind of happens with women, where, men, not so good men, use that as leverage. If they've been taking care of the woman their whole life, and then all of a sudden they just take that away from the woman, then the woman is on her own. And that's why it's kind of good for a woman to know how to survive on her own, learn how to survive on their own. But that's what's happening with society. That's what's happening with kids. So, in my opinion, the best way to teach kids is by showing them real world repercussions, teaching them about the system, having to pay bills, having to work hard, having to do a lot. Let me know what you think.